I want to read today from the Gospel of Mark, in chapter 12, reading verses 28 through 33. One of the scribes came and heard them arguing, and recognizing that he had answered them well, asked him, "What commandment is foremost of all?" Jesus answered, "The foremost is, 'Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength.' The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." The scribe said to him, "Right, teacher, you have truly said that he is one, and there is no one else besides him, and to love him with all the heart, and with all the understanding, with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as himself is much more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices." Very familiar passage that we know of as the two greatest commandments: to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, strength, love our neighbor as ourself. But what does that mean? To love God with all our heart, soul, mind, strength, to love our neighbor as ourselves. It's not talking about that emotional thing we call love, where you fall in love with somebody, you have all this giddy emotion and everything. This is not that kind of love. It is a love that knows and sees and recognizes the object of the love for what it is. And I want to look a little bit, Lord willing, over the next several devotions at what it means to love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our strength, and to love our neighbor as ourself. The scribe, in responding to Jesus' pronouncement, commented that God is one. There is no one else beside him. To love him with all our heart, with all the understanding, with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as himself, much more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices. Most important thing we can do is to love him. But the first thing to know is who he is, what he is, his nature, the fact that he is one, he is reality. He is the true one. This is one of the foundations of Scripture, that God is the source of, the root of, the foundation of all that is real, all that is in our world, all our relationships, everything to do with how we respond to each other as human beings, is founded on this fact that God is one, he's real, he has set this creation up in such a way that there are certain ways that it works and no other way works. We can try and do, and we do try and do life all sorts of ways on our own outside of God's direction and will, and it doesn't work. The other factor in loving our neighbor as ourselves is recognizing who our neighbor is, not which individual is our neighbor. Jesus talked about that in the parable of the Good Samaritan. But more than that, why it is our neighbor is worth loving, even when he's a pretty rotten guy. Because when we look at it, and C.S. Lewis talks about this in Mere Christianity, and we may try to cover that later. When we look at it and we love our neighbor as ourselves, sometimes we don't love ourselves very much. We look at ourselves, we realize we're stinkers. But there is a reason we are to love our neighbor and ourselves, and that is because of how we are created. foundation to Scripture, foundation to our understanding of this world, of ourselves, of our relationships with each other, is to know that we are each individually created in the image of God. We are to love our neighbor as ourselves because he is an image of God. Now, the image idea here is kind of odd to us in Western culture, except in a few denominations. You're looking at an image of me on the screen. Now, there's obviously some differences between the real me and what you're seeing on the screen. Real me is uglier. Real me is got a front, a back, dimensions, odor, uh, all of that. But the image kind of gives you an idea of what I look like, what I sound like with the video, and it gives you some inkling about the individual that's on this side of the screen. Image of God gives us an inkling of who God is. Imperfect, incomplete, but nonetheless very real. Therefore, we must love our neighbor as ourselves. We have to understand who God is, his nature. We have to understand that our neighbor is created in his image. So we will be exploring, what does that look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And what does it mean? The Lord our God is one Lord, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. I am thinking today of that beautiful land I shall reach when the sun goeth down. When through wonderful grace by my Savior I stand, will there be any stars in my crown? Will there be any stars in my crown, when at evening the sun goeth down? When I wake with the blessed in the mansions of rest, will there be any stars in my crown? In the strength of the Lord, let me labor and pray. Let me watch as a winner of souls, that bright stars may be mine in that glorious day, when his praise like the sea billows roll. Will there be any stars in my crown, when at evening the sun goeth down? When I wake with the blessed in the mansions of rest, will there be any stars in my crown? Oh, what joy it will be when his face I behold, living gems at his feet to lay down. It would sweeten my bliss in the city of gold, should there be any stars in my crown. Will there be any stars in my crown, when at evening the sun goeth down? When I wake with the blessed in the mansions of rest, will there be any stars in my crown?